Wrestling Brian Ortega is a new mythical fighter. He has added more wrestling to his game and it's going to complement his dangerous Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu style. He has insanely lethal submissions and all he needed was a way to get the fight to the ground, and here he did against Yair Rodriguez, but it took some time. Ortega lost the first round pretty badly because he entertained a kickboxing fight with Yair. In fact, nothing Yair was doing was different from every round. He was the same fighter every round. It was Ortega who adjusted. That was the main thing about this fight. Yair was fighting one way, throwing the 1-2, naked kicks just like always, not masking them up, not setting them up. He has great flexibility and great form of his kicks, but just doesn't have a lot of great setups to confuse the opponent. And Yair is constantly trying to find space as always. This is a uniform style of Yair Rodriguez, and Ortega was the one that changed round after round. In the first round, he was going back and forth with Yair in a kickboxing fight where he was backing up away from the punches and wasn't re-engaging the same way he did in the second and third rounds, right? He wasn't putting the same kind of pressure. If Yair would throw a combination forward, you would see Ortega back up, bounce a little bit, and allow Yair to start moving around, and then he engages a little bit more pressure. This is very different than what he did in the second and third round, and also he wasn't cutting off Yair that well. In the first round, Yair was way ahead of him when it came to footwork. Many times in that round, Ortega was just following him around the cage, and even the times where Yair would overextend with his punches, which he did very, very often. So often in that first round. There were so many opportunities for Ortega to clinch up and take him down, but he just didn't even try. He didn't even attempt it. All the openings were there, and he capitalized on these openings in the second and third rounds. He just didn't do it in the first. Same exact openings too, and he would try to counter punch instead, fighting Yair Rodriguez in a kickboxing approach, which is always going to be very difficult for Ortega to do against Yair. It was just looking to go back and forth with him, ultimately getting him dropped from a southpaw lead side kick to the leg into a left straight that he did not see coming. It glanced off of him but dropped him. It could have been a little bit of a trip because you see Yair's foot on the outside may have caused Ortega to fall over, but then a follow-up left hand after Yair chases him down, drops him again. Ortega is definitely hurt, and you see Yair Rodriguez in the first round follow Ortega to the ground after he kicks him off balance, which shows the confidence that Yair has to go to the ground with this guy. And this could have been the catalyst to Yair's demise of not trying to stand up when he got taken down in the second round. Or you could say the catalyst was the first fight between them two, where Yair believed he submitted Ortega. He got the better of him in the ground game. So why can't I do it again, right? So the second round comes along, and in the beginning, Ortega is again entertaining the strike and he's going back and forth a bit, but there's a big difference. He's pressuring a lot more. He's not giving Yair as much space. For an example, a difference from the first to the second round was when Yair would throw a jab from the first round, you see Ortega back up and give him the space to move around after. He doesn't re-engage right away. In the second round, he does re-engage immediately after he backs up. This shows a difference in pressure that Ortega realized in the fight, showing higher fight IQ than Yair Rodriguez, but of course Yair had a lot of success in the first round. He didn't see a reason to adjust. And the thing we know about Yair Rodriguez is he starts to throw panic shots if you pressure him too much. His punches become a lot sloppier, they become a lot more overextended, and this ultimately caused his demise. Every single time he threw the 1-2, or just committed with his power hand, he was always open to get taken down or clinched. Just because of how much he telegraphs the punch by flaring out his elbow, he cocks it back as a long startup before he fires it over, and when he does throw it, he way overextends, causing him to get off balance. So Ortega can see the punch because of the telegraph, and he could counter with a clinch or a takedown pretty easily, which he showed later in the second round and in the beginning of the third. It was actually very easy for Ortega to do so. He just can't walk in straight lines, which is what happened in the third. There was that one straight left from Yair that did catch him. You still gotta have an ability to slip punches, but this happened multiple times throughout the fight where Yair was overextending with the power hand. And in the beginning of the second round, Ortega was still kind of countering back with his own punches instead of clinching up with him. And in the middle of the second round is where you start to notice Ortega seeing the opening from the overextension to go and take down Yair Rodriguez, and it came very easy. Yair has pretty bad takedown defense. He seems, how should I say, he seems kind of physically weak, similar to like a Carlos Condit back in the day where you can grab a hold of him and trip him out very easily. Even someone like Ortega seemed to be so much stronger than he was once they tied up with each other. And it came with simple technique, just body locks and tripping him out, and he just tumbled to the ground. And that followed into the third where Ortega put again more pressure on him and followed up with clinches and takedowns on Yair Rodriguez's naked and overextended shots. After getting slapped by one of the naked kicks, Ortega saw the next one come out, The same thing again, Yair does not really change what he's doing. He throws out another naked round kick and Ortega sees the telegraph. He pulls away from it and re-engages behind that follow through. He's right in front of Yair and Yair again panics, throwing out the straight and then a right overhand. Ortega was able to see the left straight because he noticed Yair's posture leaning forward. And Ortega intelligently trapped that lead hand, so he knows it's not going to be the lead. He knows it's going to be the left hand because he's also too close for Yair to throw a kick in this range. And he also notices that Yair is stepping on the outside, given all the tells that Yair is going to throw a left straight. And Ortega slips on the outside of it, sees a telegraphed right overhand, ducks under, and clinches up with Yair Rodriguez. A simple trip, and Yair just tumbles to the ground very easily, just like last time. And Ortega falls on top, easily gets into full mount by controlling that left wrist and sliding his knee right above it, maybe even looking for a triangle choke, or at least threatening with one. From there, Ortega slides his right hand under Yair's head, setting up an early arm triangle choke, and all he needs now is to get his head on the outside of Yair's right shoulder. So he has to find a way to get his head in there. The way he does this is he starts throwing short left elbows at Yair's head, which causes Yair to block with his right arm, which creates the opening for Ortega to get his head on that outside and lock in that arm triangle choke. Yair was completely oblivious to it. Ortega showing brilliance on the ground game yet again and gets that easy tap. Yair did have this really cool moment outside of those knockdowns that I mentioned earlier. There was just one combination. It came with like some wild punches, but it was kind of slick with how he ended it. So from the southpaw stance, they're both in opposite stances. Yair throws the jab, and Ortega goes to parry it as well as pull away with his upper body. So you see him leaning away, and Yair follows that up with a big winging left haymaker, followed up by another right haymaker as Ortega's just leaning away. That's all the defense he really needed in order to avoid those punches. And he tried to counter Yair Rodriguez again with the left hook. But as Yair is following through with the punch, way overextending, he also throws a leg kick and his back is turned towards Ortega. You don't see many fighters throw stuff like this too often, and it shows the unpredictability of Yair Rodriguez. He can make anything happen at any moment, but his fundamentals, or his basics, Yair's basics of what he generally does in every fight can be read quite easily by the top fighters. And that's ultimately the end of the breakdown. I was very surprised with Ortega coming forward with this kind of approach. He had good adjustments, he showed higher fight IQ than Yair, which was a big difference between these two. Yair is so talented, man. He has so much potential. But some fighters are going to be smarter. Some fighters are going to have, different kind of skill sets in order to capitalize on yours. And Ortega tonight was that guy. Even though he was inactive for so long, this is the second time Ortega came back with such inactivity and looked pretty good in his return. Last time it was against Korean Zombie, and now against Yair in the rematch. But what this fight confirmed to me was that I don't think anybody beats Ilia Topuria. I was expecting Yair or Ortega to show something in this fight that would present a problem for someone like Topuria. And at this point, I think Ilia would submit Rodriguez pretty easily. I think he would take him down very easily and submit him. And against Ortega, he would not get taken down by this guy. He's a much better wrestler, he has a lower center of gravity, and he would absolutely pulverize him on the feet. Ortega walks into punches sometimes and just doesn't have a fast reaction to shots. This is shown multiple times in this fight as well, and Ilia Topuria has some insanely effective setups for his boxing. And he got dropped by Rodriguez, who isn't known to have a lot of power with his hands. If Ilia Topuria landed a right straight on Ortega like that, I think he could have chased a finish afterward and get a TKO. And even if the fight goes to the ground, Topuria is one of the better jiu-jitsu guys in this division too. I wouldn't say he's better than Ortega, but he's crafty there enough to not just get submitted out of nowhere. Ortega would have to really work for a submission. And at this point, I think it's only Max Holloway. I think Max is the guy right now until some other young contender comes up that has a pretty decent shot at competing and beating Ilia Topuria. But ultimately, this was a very interesting fight, and I hope you guys enjoyed the breakdown. If you did, make sure to give this a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and I'll see you guys in the next video.